Welcome to the Association 100 podcast. The A100 podcast is an extension of our Association 100 bi-monthly newsletter that focuses on best practices, top trends, helpful ideas, and smart strategies and tactics that work in the world of associations. The podcast will feature meaningful conversations with association professionals across the country, taking a deeper dive into trending topics, offering insights that both inform and inspire. Welcome back to the A100 podcast. I'm Colin Gallagher, and I'm joined by my co-host, Megan Henning. Today, we're bringing in a third member of the ONU team to join the podcast and talk events and event planning. Christine Stay is ONU's marketing project manager. I've had the good fortune of knowing her since we went to grad school together for public communication at American University. And she also has an incredible wealth of experience when it comes to associations and events. So Christine, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Hi, Colleen. Hi, Megan. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So before we dive into things, tell us a bit more about your background and the roles you've worked in before joining ONU.
Sure. Actually, to piggyback off what you said, Colleen, I have my bachelor and master's degrees in marketing and public communication. And my first role, I was at a not-for-profit association for 9 years. And there I focused on marketing, communications, overall member experience, and in addition to that, events. We would have a couple of smaller events throughout the year, but we also have a larger conference and expo annually for our members. And there I was in charge of marketing for the event, but also planning the internal booths that we'd have on the expo floor for our members. On a side note to that, I'd also be in charge of recruitment and prospecting for the association. So I would travel all over the US and I would attend meetings and conferences. So I learned to develop different, booth styles at these in order to recruit people. After that, I really focused on the event planning side. So I worked for nonprofits at Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and Sunrise Association. And that gave me some really good internal data about knowing your audience, your demographics, what people want. And now coming back full circle, I'm helping associations grow and I'm excited to do that. And, this is just a little part of that.
Christine, that's great. You have so much experience with event planning, and we want to start our discussion today on this subject. And we haven't really talked a lot about it yet, and that is associations participating in an expo at a conference that isn't their own. So what are some of the reasons for doing this?
Sure. I think you could really break it down to 3 overall goals. And some of them might be all 3, some of them might be 1. The first being exposure of the association. And this could be twofold. It could be either you're a brand new association, so you're trying to get the word out there, or you're trying to get to a different market that you've never really reached out to before. So this is really more knowledge-based, who you are and what you do. So very straightforward. The second would be recruitment. So prospecting members, they might know about your association, maybe heard like little glimpses, but you really have to get them and incentivize them to join, talk about your benefits and what's beneficial to them into joining, your association. And the third would be retention. And that attending these meetings and conferences, you'll get a lot of members, your own members that will be attending these events. And that face-to-face contact is so important. And being on the expo floor, but also attending a lot of networking events that happen to be at, conferences like bar nights and dinners, and really having that face-to-face and retaining those clients. So I would say those are the 3 biggest goals.
Yeah, that's really interesting. One of the things that, sometimes I wonder is a conference or an expo, is it all the same? Or should you really be focused on your audience and the demographics of the conference attendees? And is there anything in particular that our listeners should be looking out for?
Sure, and that's a great question. Well, one of the things is I would always reach out to a person at the conference that I was attending, and I'd ask for the demographics. A lot of conferences and meetings will have those details. So you could really just reach out to someone and they'll give you, the breakdown. And I think this also goes to the overall goals we were talking about. Like, are there a lot of your members there? Are there not a lot of members? And knowing also like the ages of people and what's going to entice them to come into your booth and your expo. I think all those really you have to think about when planning these.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I love that I'm seeing conferences provide are there decision makers there, the percentage of people who are decision makers. Like those kind of demographics, they matter so much.
Yep. I think it's a great way. Yeah. Is it going to be your own members there, or is it the members' bosses that are there that make the financial decision whether they join the association? So I think to your point, Colleen, that's a great point to make.
Yeah. I'm going to go off script a little. I'm curious kind of like, what are some of the best experiences you had exhibiting at a conference and what worked really well?
Sure. I remember I went to I think it was called Interbev and conference, and it was a brand new market that we had never got into before, but we wanted to break into that. And I remember that I was a little scared because it was just like, a different demographic that I'd ever done before. And, but when you start realizing that at the end of the day, it's all just like personal skills, talking skills, reaching out to people. And once you get comfortable with being able to initiate conversations with people, I think that's as soon as I got more comfortable with going to these events, I realized that our recruitment numbers and our prospects numbers were increasing. As I got more comfortable, then I was seeing those numbers go up.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Can I ask just a quick question with that too? You mentioned that you did that when you were breaking into a new market. Would you suggest, I hadn't thought about that in terms of exhibiting, if you totally just wanted to break into another market, do you think that's a good way of sort of getting intel into the market that you want to be in?
Definitely. I think this is an opportunity for you to have a large amount of people. And again, that face-to-face aspect of, I think we're so inundated with so much emails and social media and communication that if you just send out an email to some of these new prospects that you're looking at, I hate to say it, a lot of times it just might be glossed over. So this, I thought, was a great opportunity to get in front of these people.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a much more personal touch point.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Onward and Upward did its first exhibiting experience last summer, and we took our Association 100 publication here on the road to the ASAE conference. And it was funny because going into it, Megan mentioned we've worked conventions forever. And for years, I was saying the line of, expo floors are where business gets done. And this is how, and, I have to admit going into it, I was really nervous. And I was thinking, is there a good ROI here? Or we're not spending money and we're not going to meet anyone. It's not going to be worth it. And I was just blown away by how powerful and awesome an experience it was, how great it was to meet new people, to talk to people that we knew were going to be there, to see existing clients, to meet potential new clients. It really exceeded my expectations, even beyond what I could have hoped for. So definitely a very cool experience. And that kind of shifts into the next piece of our conversation, because going into it, I had to plan the booth design and I had no clue what to do. And like many things, I left it to the last minute and there was a midnight deadline for the pricing. So my husband and I are sitting up at 9:00 at night at our kitchen table after a little one went to bed with, a map drawn out of the 10 by 10 size booth we had and playing with like the different furniture to see where it would fit and trying to figure it all out. But let's talk booth design. What are kind of the primary considerations that go into figuring that out?
And can I just tell you, this might even save somebody from a horror story that I've seen before. I've seen people show up at conferences and expos, didn't know anything, and they get to a bare concrete floor, no tables, no chairs. I know. And my anxiety just increases. So I think just thinking, be like, okay, I need something in the booth. You're already ahead of the game from some people. So that's good. But yes, thinking about the booth design, and I know you were talking about return on investment, which is really good to keep this in mind, where a lot of times you go, okay, this is a lot of money at first to be spending. Are we going to make this back? So I think what you can do is take that in consideration and start small. A lot of people are like, I want a 50 by 50 booth. That's not going to happen unless you're like Ford or something and you're at, an expo. So
when a paper wastebasket costs $50,
yes.
Oh gosh.
It can be definitely shell shock, definitely. So I think you can start small, and that's okay. You're going to see a lot of those 10 by 10 booths, and it's okay to start there. And if you see that return on investment really helping with these events, then you can maybe grow a little bit better and bigger. But at first, it's okay to start small. So I think a lot of people go like, that's going to be tiny, but it really is okay to start that way. And I think you have to think about things like, make it colorful, make it attractive, make it clean. You want to entice people, but you don't want it too flashy. And you also don't want it too boring that people just keep on passing you. So I think it's that fine line. And I think that also goes back into your demographics. Like, if you have a certain type of person there, like very straightforward business people, or if you have a different demographic that maybe is, I think it all depends on the demographics also.
Okay, so another consideration as you're thinking about your booth is the leave behinds or even giveaways. So what are your thoughts around that, and what an important part of the booth setup that all is?
Yes. I think a lot of people also make the mistake of just going in with, we have to give away an iPad and then, we have to give away a laptop or something fun. And then they forget about the informative part of it, of having the collateral and the information. And that is the overall goal. Yes, it's great to get people in the booth, but if they're leaving with just like a ticket stub of maybe they're a winner and they left and not knowing who you are, what you're doing, right, it doesn't matter what you're giving away. So again, that fine line of picking there. But I think if you can, giveaways are definitely helpful. You don't have to spend a ton of money. I mean, I have pens still to this day that I use from conferences probably 4 or 5 years ago. So you don't have to go crazy. It's just something that will remind somebody, in addition to having the information at the booth as well.
I think it's funny when Colleen first said giveaways, I was thinking iPad, but then you said pens and I'm like, oh, the tchotchkes.
Yeah, tchotchkes, I know.
So they are important. I mean, they're important.
Yeah, branding, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a mid-tier giveaway at our booth. We had a Fitbit. So a lot of people had Apple Watches and iPads and things like that. And we weren't quite ready to spend that money. The thing that we did, and I saw a lot of other people doing it so that it wouldn't just be people come up and enter, is that, they had to scan a QR code and put their information in. So at least it was a lead.
Yes,
so,
that's a great idea.
Dropping their name and phone number in a bowl, and when, they win and we never hear from them again after we hand it over, kind of a thing. So, it made sense from that way, but we did do the pens. So I think that, worked out well to get our branding out there. And I don't see the literature racks anymore. People aren't putting like magazines out and tons of one-pagers. We had another sign with a QR code to our services and what we offer, instead of putting out, a bunch of pieces of paper that people are going to take back to their hotel room and throw out. So I think you are seeing people being more sustainability conscious.
Which is great. Yes.
Some of the cooler booths had TV screens that were showing things and playing things that were happening. I really liked those and thought that was really engaging. So just a lot of interesting stuff that people do with their booths, and people get creative with all different size ones. Like you mentioned, some of the 10 by 10 ones are some of the coolest ones. They have some really neat stuff that they've packed in there.
And what I liked is the more you attend these, the more you can get creative also by seeing what other people are doing.
Right.
And not necessarily stealing that idea, but just seeing what fits in with your association.
Yeah, for sure. So I mentioned my own sitting around at 9 p.m. to be the midnight deadline. What kinds of decisions and deadlines need to be considered along the way?
Yeah, I think initially it's obviously getting approval to attend that event or conference. A lot of times, there's probably a few people that need to make that decision and put that stamp of approval to attend. So as soon as you can do that, the better. And then obviously, making sure that you get that deadline of the expo floor and the booth, because I've seen things where they either sell out easily and then you don't know that they sold out. You're not paying attention to your correspondence or communications that it has. You go to do it and it's gone. Or the deadlines where a lot of times they'll do, it's, you get $200 off of your items that you get for your booth if you do if you sign up by this date. So $200, if you do this 3 or 4 times a year, that can add up. So I think just putting that on your calendar and making sure that I know we're all busy, but not doing it last minute, it might save you money in the long run as well. And then I think what also happens is people just worry about the booth at the last minute and then not, the design of it, but again, not what you are going to present to people or your signage or your design. And you're just worried about like, yes, do I have chairs? Do I have a table? And so I think the sooner you can do that, then you can really focus on the messaging part of having your booth there.
That is so cool. That's such a good point to consider, because it is overwhelming, and I didn't even realize you could be saving money, on these certain sort of like it's an early bird type thing. And I only think that always applies to registration, but obviously it would make sense that it applies to booth design.
Right.
Exactly. So this has been such a great conversation, Christine. You have so much knowledge and it's been great. We like to end every podcast with a couple of fun questions so our audience can get to know you better. So where did you grow up?
I actually grew up in New Jersey, at the Jersey Shore, which I know everybody is going to get this idea that I have snooky level hair, and I do not. But so yeah, I grew up at the Jersey Shore, and I loved growing up there. I'm such a beach baby, and I did love that.
That is awesome. If you won the lottery tomorrow, would you still work?
I wouldn't necessarily work per se. What I'd like to do is use my knowledge and experience that I have and use it for almost like a greater good. Like I'd love to work for like a women's shelter that teaches women that are getting out of abusive relationships or situations, teaching them life skills and work skills. Like I would love to do something like that.
That's awesome. I feel like out of all the people we have interviewed, this is like a gold star response. Right. That's an awesome response.
I love it.
So what is your favorite movie or TV show?
Oh my goodness. There's so many. I'm such like a Harry Potter nerd, but I would say maybe because it's the holidays coming up, but one of my favorite movies is Love Actually. I love that movie
yes.
so much. I'll probably watch it like at least 10 times before Christmas.
That is a great movie. Dogs or cats? I'm
allergic to both, which is awful because I love animals. I would probably say I lean more towards dogs. The chubbier, the better. I love a chubby pug. Oh my goodness.
So funny. You're the third person we've had on this podcast who's allergic to both.
Yes.
It's fairly common. I will literally pick any of them up and just go like that with my face and rub them against my face, and then I'll just break out. But yeah, I know. I wish I wasn't because I love them.
So what's something you miss from the pre-pandemic days? And I realize pre-pandemic is like in quotation marks.
Yeah, no, we're still living it. It's crazy. Yes. I don't know if it was the pandemic or, I think I kind of missed the optimism, and I think we're heading back towards that way. But I feel like ever since the pandemic, or maybe it's the news cycle, it's like very doom and gloom.
Yes.
And I miss just that there was just good news along with the bad news. And I feel like the pandemic made the news people go all right, we can focus on the negative, constant. And everybody will eat it up. But I do feel as though we're kind of leaning back more out of this now. And I'm seeing more of the good news cycle and good feel good stories. So I do miss that, but we're getting there.
We are getting there. Yes. Yes. Well, this has been awesome. Christine, thank you so much for talking to us today. And I know our listeners are going to be really excited about all of the nuggets of information you've given.
Oh, thank you both so much. I really appreciate it.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Association 100 podcast, brought to you by the A100 publishing team, powered by Onward and Upward Marketing and Communications. You can subscribe to the Association 100 podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all of your favorite podcast listening apps so you'll never miss out. Or listen via our website at theassociation100.com. Follow us on Twitter at Association100. That's Association100 for all the latest insights and trends impacting the world of associations. Thanks for tuning in.